Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Laveen just mentioned about the lunch. I'm going to push it a little bit further and probably borrow another 15 minutes before we guys let each other off for a good lunch. So basically, I'm going to tell you a little story out here that last week, it so happened that Subho, who's been driving IAMAI, over the last decade, he called me up and he said that, hey, Dippak, we are doing this event in Bangalore. Why don't you come and talk something? So I told him that, hey, okay, let me figure out my schedule, and I would love to really participate here. The next thing I did was I looked up at the agenda, and I looked up, the kind of topics which were covered. So I saw my friend Neeraj talking about the state of mobile advertising, my friend Anuj on a fireside chat, and then I found Lavin talking about the mistakes of mobile marketing. I also found some interesting panel discussions. The next thing I told Subho is that, hey Subho, is there something left for me to speak? Why do you want to call me? Do you think I can really add value here? Bang came the response from him, and he told me that, hey Deepak, you know what? You as an entrepreneur have been running a large mobile media business since the beginning of 2010. And we've seen the country going through a big shift since 2010. So why don't you just touch upon a point which says that, for you as an entrepreneur, what keeps you going? What keeps you on the toes? Boom, I had an answer. I quickly said that yes, the one keyword which struck me was disruption. And I found my topic. So ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to present to you, my topic is disrupt. Go out and disrupt or get disrupted. So let me begin with first addressing where we are today. Some numbers, I know most of you guys have seen these numbers in the first half, but just to remind yourself that total addicts in the country is about $7 billion. When you look at TV ad spends, they roughly take over about 40-45% of the total addicts. They reach out to over about 600 million users. When you look at mobile ad spends, 200 million, that's it. Reach about 300 million users in terms of internet users. Yes, a part of it could be smartphone users, some are not on smartphone, but I would not spend too much time on that right now. Now, when you look at the next 4 or 5 years, okay, and if you look at the recent trends, the country has been roughly adding anywhere between 60 to 80 million users on mobile internet every year, and we see that pattern continuing. So what does it mean to us? Basically, it means is at some point, either it is by 2020, either it is by 2018, we will reach a tipping point where the reach of mobile will be larger than the reach of television. Now that obviously means a big development in an ecosystem like ours, where for the longest period of time, we've been looking at television as the primary platform which has the maximum reach. If you look at other countries, if you look at markets like, China, they have already, the spend in China for mobile advertising has already surpassed the spend of television. I was reading some report and I found that when you look at US is also at a point where in the next 12 to 18 months, mobile ad spend is going to surpass television ad spend. So, it leaves a speculation in the room that when will that happen in India? Will that happen at the same time when the mobile reach surpasses, or will it get deferred by another 2-3 years? I would like to, being an entrepreneur, I'm always optimistic, and I always love the thought of preponing things. I always get excited by change. My estimation is that there are many we've not even visualized, or we've not even seen companies, we've not even seen some emerging technologies. We know what is present today, and we try to form an opinion how the future could look. Now, if I were to look at what is known today and what is unknown, if I add X plus Y, I feel that we will be at a point by 2020 where if we do a great, if the ecosystem really does a great job, if it mobilizes really well, we could be at a point where you would be bare minimum, mobile advertising would be bare minimum about 50% of television advertising, bare minimum. And I'll tell you, like I was telling my team that I'm going to say that, I prefer saying that we should be closer or to probably 3/4 of that, but this is a little measured comment out here. So we will be at that point. So as we get to that point, what are we speaking about? Okay, we are talking about variety of disruptions along the way. So when we look at disruptions, okay, what does that mean? Whilst the market is going to grow, I just spoke about the numbers, I spoke about my optimism about the market. What does it mean? Will people, so today we are all excited in this room about this opportunity. But I have my doubt. I have my doubt that will existing people in this room will be around to seize this opportunity or not? Or will there be new people in the ecosystem? It is going to get tested. So that's where, the disruption would happen, because I'm very sure that not everybody in the room will be able to go out and disrupt the ecosystem. There definitely will be people who will get disrupted. So that's how I see the ecosystem. So if I look at, key stakeholders in the ecosystems, whether they are marketers, whether they are advertisers, whether they are ad tech companies like us, or whether they are publishers, I think that point of saying that each one of us need to be having a point of view saying that, hey, either I need to disrupt or either I need to accept disruption. Yeah. As we think about disruption, so there are, when I kind of pondered a bit over disruption as a point, there were 3-4 broad dynamics which kind of like really hit me. And the first one was the consumer itself. So first of all, when we look at today, we are talking about what? We are talking, there are people in the room who say, digital native. There are people who are talking about millennials. There are all kinds of conversation about the consumer. So I was trying to get my head around and saying that, hey, you know what? For the last decade, we've been looking at people who have embraced technology. But when I look at my daughter or when I look at her friends, I don't get that signal. I am beginning to form an opinion that, this generation which is starting with mobile devices is a puzzle. We don't know. Yeah, there are some indicators which they are giving you, which are very different from the previous consumer. So, I mentioned about millennials. Clearly, they are the people who have embraced technology. Now, we need to figure out how do we define millennials as? So we put together this slide and I actually borrowed some of these points from an article in New York Times, and I said that, hey, you know what? This is what a millennial looks like. Yeah. So we're talking about, people who are born between 1980 and 1995. We're talking about them as technology embracers. You're talking about when it comes to social media, Facebook and Twitter are their preferred channels. If you look at web, for them YouTube is what they've seen. If you look at their first gadget, a large part of them, I would say iPod. When you look at music, pop was their favorite music. And if you look at their first shopping experience, you would attribute that to malls. So I am here today talking about the next generation, popularly called as Generation Z. How do they look like? Okay, these are people who can simultaneously create a document, edit a post, a photo on Instagram, and talk on the phone, and all together, all that multitasking, they can do that seamlessly. Okay, they take to information instantly. The way they absorb information is amazing. Many times I get challenged when I look at my daughter and I say that, you know, the speed at which she takes to information at times puts me to shame. Yeah. At the same time, what I notice is they lose interest very quickly. It is very hard. Nothing settles down. Okay, it comes, it sticks, and it disappears. Yeah. So that's the kind of generation we are talking about. Okay. There are people who are born between 1996 2010. Popularly, we are classifying them today as digital natives. Their preference of social media is not Facebook, it's Snapchat. I personally believe that for this generation, Facebook will not be the platform where they would engage on social media. When you look at Webstar, they prefer Vine over YouTube. When you look at their first gadgets, clearly smartphones, tablets, I see them that's their experience point. They're beginning their experience there. When you look at music, their preference is EDM over pop. When you talk about shopping to them and their first shopping experience to them, interestingly, it is mobile apps. You know, they don't like the idea of going to a mall. My daughter, there again, she's 10, and she conveniently says that, hey, why should I go out to a mall and waste my time, which I know what I want, and I can pick it up, and I would rather spend time enjoying with my friends or socializing, but not go to a mall. Yeah. So this is the first disruption which is going to happen when it comes to consumer. Yeah. Interesting point. With this, I'll move to the other dynamic. So as we all try to understand the consumer, the next thing we have is basically a changing ecosystem. We're going to have different people participating in this ecosystem. I mentioned earlier on that people who exist in the room may or may not exist to seize the mobile marketing opportunity. So who are we talking about? You know, recently we've seen video OTT players getting very active. So far, social has been a primary platform to draw ad dollars, or marketers prefer that, but very quickly video OTT players, because I mentioned my colleague, someone from Sony made a point about content, and I really feel that yes, content and mobile will emerge as a very different opportunity. Today we can't imagine the size of that opportunity. Who else? There again, now we've recently seen large marketplace platforms, people going to shop there, whether it's a Flipkart or a Snapdeal, them eager to participate in the mobile advertising or the mobile marketing ecosystem. These platforms again would become fairly interesting opportunities for marketers to leverage on. Last but not the least, you know, then we look at a distraction like telecom and OEM. When I decided to put these two categories on this slide, I asked myself that, so we all understand, in various conversations it has come up that telcos have phenomenal rich data, and most people in the ecosystem, when they look at it, you know, people like us, people at advertiser, you know, all of them believe that a carrier can contribute to this ecosystem, yeah, because of the richness of the data they have. Having said that, it is unproven and there is still a lot of discovery. So I would say that, you know, how telcos will play, that puzzle is yet to shape up. Can they be a dominant force in this ecosystem? The answer right now appears yes and no. They will probably have to find a way out to seize or become a key player in this opportunity. When you talk to OEMs, I talk to my friends in the OEM category, they proudly believe that they are the largest out-of-home media. Yeah. They believe that so many devices are going out to so many people. Why can't we be that? Yeah. So there again, I see signs, I see ambitions of people like them trying to participate. And here I just want to make a point here that every time a new segment comes into the market, it definitely changes the status quo. it is going to disrupt. It is going to create newer opportunities, it's going to create newer challenges. It is going to it is not just, it's going to expand the market, it will definitely push out some of the guys from the market as well. So that's an evolution. So that's, the second point around newer players. And here, this by no way is a comprehensive set of players. I personally think there are more unknown guys thinking about this, which we'll soon discover. What is next? So we spoke about consumer, we spoke about new players in the ecosystem. Now, something which is very close to the media ecosystem and fairly transactional in nature. What is happening? Basically, we will get forced to embrace automation in the media buying process. Okay. Practically, we're seeing as consumers or as enterprises, everyone prefers automation. If you apply that across industries, there has been a really fast adoption of that. In my view, the media industry likes to talk about new technology, resists to adopt new technology the pace at which they should. Yeah. So there is some pull and pressure there. I personally believe that, automation or programmatic, as it is popularly known, is where it has to go very quickly. The reason why it does not land where it should be is purely because there is existing pull and pressure in the ecosystem. Okay, maybe some publishers think that that's not the way, it puts them at a disadvantage. Maybe the marketers think that, hey, you know what, I'm used to buying, fixed spots, fixed buys. Here there is unpredictable delivery. I have to sign off a budget. So there are some pulls and pressures there. It is going to push companies to be more transparent. It will expose efficiency. So I think because of all these factors, there is a slow progress towards this approach. But it is a given fact that if you don't accept it, the new companies will come out and just push the ecosystem fast and make this happen very quickly. Now, when you look at, automation happening there, what are the other factors which can come and disrupt? So when I was thinking about that, I said, hey, in context to this event, in context to this marketing act, I looked at it and said, what else is relevant out there? And I figured out that consumers would adopt some new technologies very quickly. And what are those? What came to my mind was the first one we're talking about is IoT. Okay, where what it means is, now if I look at IoT, the way I define IoT means to a consumer is more smarter devices. That's it. Okay, I have as a consumer today embraced mobile as a smart device. I really like a smart device like that. It's a matter of time for me as a consumer to start embracing other smarter devices. There are many experiments happening in that category, and I'm sure consumers will sooner or later take to their preferred wearables or other smarter devices. That's one. We're talking about beacons. Someone mentioned, earlier during the day was that it's at a fairly early stage. I completely agree with that gentleman there. And so what would beacons end up doing to this ecosystem? Clearly, one area, if I would just say, they would redefine hyperlocal. So the way the hyperlocal activity would happen for our marketers, beacons would play some part there. The way I see it, it is at a point right now where whilst 2015 was more about selling, but the critical distribution of beacons has not happened. It would possibly happen sometimes towards the last quarter of 16 or it will reach a tipping point sometime towards the end of 16 or maybe early 17. Then, the favorite topic, data. Obviously, as we are seeing consumers taking to mobile apps, there is plenty of data. A lot of appification happening. Me as a consumer, I have an app for fitness, I have an app for shopping, I have an app for transport, My kids go to school, they have a different app, the school has a different app. All of this is nothing but places where you're leaving your data sets. So there is a lot of smart data. So in the earlier world, in the earlier digital world where Google, because that was a place you were spending time. So someone made a point that yes, today Google and Facebook have most amount of data. The good news is they would not be there. Okay, there are other players going to be having that data. So they have one form of data. Data is not going to be a priceless, asset restricted to a fewer companies in this form of digital world. You're going to find data being everywhere. The key challenge there would be that who's using that data smartly. Okay, I think that's where the learning curve is there. In my view, data is going to be plenty. So people who have invested, so whether marketers would sit with plenty of data, ad tech companies would sit with plenty of data, consumer companies would sit with plenty of data. You're going to find plenty of that. But unless and until those companies put in a practice of meaningful data science, make sense of that, experiment with that, fail with it, they will never be able to exploit it. So I think there companies who can go ahead and experiment, put some learning budgets there, go with that mindset, they will gain significantly out of that. So, what I mentioned is these are all the possible disruptions which we are looking at the future and we are saying that, hey, mobile marketing, consumer reach, massive, great. In a way, we are all blessed. We are all blessed that we are a part of this revolution. But clearly, there again, in order to kind of really make or seize the opportunity, I think most of us, most companies, if I were to just say that, most companies will have to really figure out newer ways to exist. They will have to break down their organization structures. They will have to create new titles within the organizations. I recently met a friend of mine who's joined Mahindra and he leads their digital initiative. He made a very interesting point. He made a point and he said, Deepak, we have hired a guy who's a COO. And he said, so my reaction was, so what's new? He said, you know what that means? It means the chief offline to online officer. Okay. When I heard that, I stood up and I said, wow, I like it. You're talking about a group like Mahindra saying that I have a guy who's a chief offline to online officer. Fantastic. Okay. So that is a signal in my view. Okay. There is going to be existing structures in which people manage their teams should be collapsed. You have to find new ways to do it. If you want to be agile enough. Okay. So if you want to be the disruptor, you will have to be agile. And if you decide to be agile, you have to dismantle existing structures. So my final thoughts, okay, my final point here is that we are all living in an era of disintermediation, clearly, okay. So basically businesses or any company, whether it's a media business or anyone, I personally believe that they have to, their teams, the leaders of their teams, the people in their team, unless and until they chant and live 3 words, they're not going to be around. Those 3 words for me mean, can they out-imagine constantly? Can they out-execute every day, day after day? And finally, can they out-innovate? So if they do that, then possibly they would move from being a company which survives to a company which thrives and seizes the disruption in the ecosystem and really becomes a large business by 2020. So with that, my friends, I would like to conclude and thank you very much for listening to me. Subho, thank you very much for letting me choose whatever topic I had to speak. And And I hope you guys enjoy your lunch. And before I sign off, wish you all happy holidays. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Dippak. And now for the most awaited session, we break for lunch now. And we'll break for 45 minutes. We will get back here for the last panel discussion. Thank you.